Welcome back to the Barrel Talk podcast. We are back with another episode. We are officially, from this recording, 1 full week away from the NBA season starting. So, we got to come back and do our NBA predictions. In this episode, we are going to be focused on standings and playoffs. So we'll have our NBA champions and our playoff predictions and our standings and everything of that sort in this episode. And then we'll do another episode with our awards, all NBA teams and stuff like that. But we'll kind of just start out with the Eastern Conference, go 15-1 with our standings, and then go to the Western Conference, do 15-1. Then we'll get into our playoffs, and that'll be the bulk of this episode. But you can go ahead and start out with your Eastern Conference. We'll go 15-1.
Sorry, did you say go all the way from 15-1, or do you just want to start at 15? Just talk about 15, or I mean, just break it all the way down. Okay, at 15. I'll start out. I got to say, this is hard for me to do because, it pains me to say it after they had these 5 first-round picks. We talked about it last episode with one question for every team, but I got the Brooklyn Nets. I'm way more excited about some of the things in Washington and Charlotte than I am in Brooklyn. We're talking about the 3 worst teams in a weak Eastern Conference, but to me, I got Brooklyn at 15. I just am concerned with the idea of Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas being what you rely on for your offense throughout a whole season. Now, those 2 players, they can do a lot of things very, very well, and they're going to have some very big nights. But you combine that with a team that I don't see being incredible defensively. I got them at 15. I think Jorge Fernandez is a really good coach, though, so he could probably prove me wrong and have them winning some games they aren't supposed to, kind of like last year. But I got them at 15.
I agree. I don't really have anything else to add. I think this is going to be I also have them at 15, but in terms of March basketball and early April basketball before the playoffs, when their season's pretty much over with, it'll probably be over with a little bit earlier. But I'm interested to see who they sell at the deadline, like a Cam Thomas or a Nick Claxton of that nature, and then see kind of towards that back end where it's just the rookies and a couple of second and third year guys out there really to kind of figure out who they are going into the offseason. But I agree, I have them at 15. At 14, I have Washington. I think they just have a lot on paper. I think the roster is a lot more talented than people may think, but I do think CJ McCollum and Chris Middleton are moved at some point throughout the year. I think they're too valuable, and I think they still have another year, 2 or 3, maybe left in them on the right team in the right situation. And with how injuries happen in the NBA, I'm going to take the chance that somebody's going to want to come get Chris Middleton once he recoups his value. I don't think Chris Middleton is washed by any means. I think he was dealing with some injuries in Milwaukee, and then they kind of pivoted and got him off that. And he has a contract that I think is a little bit more tradable on a 1 year. I don't think there's a bad 1 year trade in terms of contracts. So him and CJ being on 1 years, Washington's going to have this boatload of money going into next offseason. But I think at 14, the only things I want to see is them get some value for Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum at the deadline. Because I think a contending team's going to want somebody like Chris Middleton. We talk about something that's interesting that I feel like has never been brought up because they already have such an old core and an old roster. It's what if Chris Middleton gets moved to Golden State or something, at the back end of the year, for Kuminga, if the Kuminga shit's really not working out, if I'm thinking more of Washington side of things, getting somebody like him. I think if they can get in on somebody maybe Kuminga, because I like Trey Johnson. I think he's going to be phenomenal, especially him with CJ McCollum. It's not like you're throwing him kind of like they did with Jalen Green, a high prolific scorer just out there to be your number 1 option. I'm glad Washington brought in some vets, but I think 14 is solid. As long as you really see development from Alex Sarr, I think it's a big, big time year for him and what his potential could possibly be in the league, because he's the guy. He's their guy. They moved off Denny Abdia. I like Bilal Coulibaly, but I think he's more of a third, fourth option, in terms of being a young core. And I like Trey Johnson and Alex Sarr, and I like Bub Carrington, but Alex Sarr's their guy. You got to see him develop. But I would love to see them sell some stuff at the deadline, but I got them at my 14th seed.
I have them at 14 as well. Real quick, I want to speak on the Golden State idea you mentioned. I really like that. I like that you still are believing in Chris Middleton having something left in the tank. We know what he was, obviously, when he was able to be the second option and Giannis's, shot creator on a fantasy level team. He's not going to give you that anymore. But for your Warriors, Corey, I mean, he could give you Sean Livingston level play off that bench if you guys are to be a team that's, in contention. Just a guy who can knock down a mid-range shot, do a little playmaking himself, have some size. So I like that idea. I like where your mind's at with Chris Middleton at this point. That being said, like, him and CJ are almost talking me into putting them over a team like Charlotte, just because if they're not moved all the way until the deadline, like, you mix those guys, we're used to watching with all these young guys. Now it's going to be these young guys, a little bit better level of young guys mixed with some vets. It could honestly have them winning some more games than we're acting like, but I have them at 14 as well. Nothing too much to be excited about, but it'll be interesting to see like that mix of vets.
I could realistically have them anywhere on this, in my opinion.
Well, let's be honest, I'll go into 13. Mine's Charlotte. I don't think Charlotte's going to give us anything on the defense side like the whole season. And I almost want to change my list and put Washington at 13 and Charlotte at 14. Not that it's a huge deal. Charlotte, they have no bigs. I don't trust the defense. Is LaMelo going to play a whole full season, So, yeah.
Going into my 13, I have Chicago at my 13. Ooh. I think this is finally the year where they take a little bit of a step back, because they're usually a playing team in that 9-10 realm. But no LaVine, no DeRozan for a full year now, without having those like guys that are just solid go-to scorers on a night-in, night-out basis. Now it's Kobe White, Josh Giddey. Montas has looked solid in preseason if you're tapped in. Like, I think this is the year where they finally like crack a top 5, top 6-ish pick instead of being at like 10, 11, 12. I think this is the year they finally get into like the top 6, 7 in terms of draft pick this year. But I just think with no DeRozan, and I think Vucevic at some point either gets just bought out or moved. I just think there's teams going to be lacking so much scoring, missing from LaVine, DeRozan, and Vuce at some points, where it's like going to be so much scoring for Kobe White, Giddey, Patrick Williams, Montas to like hold up in the middle of the year. So I got them at 13. But this would be a good thing for the Bulls to kind of not be in the plan for once and get a higher draft pick than they usually do get year in, year out.
I kind of like what you're thinking, and their fans should as well. Like, as much as, like, let's just be honest, they've been winning these past few years. It's felt so meaningless of them playing in the play-in that if you're not going to make a jump to being a playoff team and they don't have the roster for that, like you mentioned, especially without LaVine, then they should want to be, having that top 10 pick, like, guaranteed, having a potential top 5 pick, hopefully getting lucky, being able to score one of these, AJ Devance and Darren Peterson prospects. Because, like, realistically, like, you can get excited about Montas all you want, and I'm really excited about him as a player as well. But I don't even know if their fan base fully believes that he could be like like their number one option, like, type of guy going forward. I think he's a really good play finisher and good in transition, but he hasn't shown enough in the half-court game to me or as a, like, shooter to where I'm like comfortable with like building around him yet, right? Like, we need another big time draft pick, and that's no disrespect to Montas. I really like Montas' game, but no, I have them at my 12, so I wanted to talk about them really quick. My 12 is the Chicago Bulls. Their fans should be excited that they're not going to be playing in that playing game if our prediction is to come true.
So my 12 is Charlotte. We've already talked about Charlotte. To kind of wrap up the Bulls, I think in terms of sports, this might be a little bit of a hot take. I think because all sports is kind of such a broad, wide variety, but I think they're the most misutilized, mismanaged franchise in all of sports compared to what they actually have to work with. It's easy to say teams like, for example, like Jacksonville for the longest time in football, like their market isn't the greatest football-wise down there. Like, we're talking about Chicago. We're talking about one of the biggest markets, biggest cities in the world. Like, we're talking this known basketball city.
Yep.
And I feel like they've done 100%. Nothing to like bring life, because I feel like basketball is better. And this could either, I'm not even a fan of any of these teams. So when I name them, like, I just think basketball is better because the environment they have at their home games and like the media draws. I'm talking about when the Lakers are good, basketball is better. I don't care what nobody says. Yep. When the Lakers are good, basketball is better. When the Knicks are good, basketball is better. And when Chicago Bulls are good, and it has been a long time since they've been looked at in that same light, I just think the product is better for the league because of the big markets. You can always, the hot takes are like, oh, smaller markets are it's so hard to like for smaller markets to like thrive and everything else. I'm like, yeah, because these bigger it's Chicago. I feel like there's so much draw that they don't take advantage of because they sit on their ass and they don't make the necessary moves to get the team better and they hold on to their players and they don't cash in on value ever. It's just the most mismanaged
Well,
with what they have to work with and like especially the last 10 years since Derrick Rose, basically.
it's exactly what you said though. The draw is so huge. That's why they're still top of the league in crowd attendance every single season. Jerry
Mhm.
Reinsdorf is comfortable with that though. He runs them and the White Sox like a business, and it's unfair to the fans. Jerry Reinsdorf is completely okay with being the 7-8 seed every single year, just good enough where you get that playing game, and just good enough where the fans still want to come watch, and still being at the top of the ticket sales and having high jersey sales and making a lot of money. He's been okay with that for a long time, and he has not wanted to pay the money to seriously try to win. I liked his attempt with the Zach LaVine Lonzo little era before
I was
the
just about to bring
unfortunate
that up
Lonzo
because
injury. But
they
yeah,
that was
like
the year
everything
where
you
they
said is
were.
fact. Yeah, they look fun. They just look fun. Like they played a fun style of basketball. And the Bulls, listen, I'll say the Bulls were honestly kind of a fun team to watch towards the end of the year last year when Josh Giddey was really clicking. Like Josh Giddey, like we talked about this last time, I think, Corey, like he just kind of allows you to play a style of basketball that's fun to watch. And if they can lean into that and they can make some good decisions here, like those fans are not gonna go anywhere. If
Mhm.
you can be bad, and as long as you have a promising rebuild going on, I promise you, the fans are still gonna be there. Jerry Reinsdorf, you need to take this serious for these fans of Chicago. They deserve better. It's one of my rivals as a Bucks fan. They deserve better. They're used to the Michael Jordan, Derrick Rose days. You don't need to have that, but like move off Vucevic, move off these guys. Like let's get this rebuild going.
Mhm. Getting into my 11th seed. This was a tough one because I feel like all from
Our
11 to
12 through
7.
15 is the same, right? Just
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Our 12 through 15 is all the same. Okay, all right. Not same
So,
order, but same team.
mhm. So 11 to 7, I feel like all these teams have a good argument and a good case. You could make an argument for every team. And I can kind of lean into it a little bit. I have Boston at 11
11.
because
Oh,
I think this is a pivot punt year. I know we're seeing the smoke about Jason Tatum has a date circled on his calendar to play this year. I don't believe it. I don't think they're going to be in real playoff contention. I think they'll be in the mix of a play-in team. But you got to think the center room has depleted completely. You don't have Kristaps Porzingis or Al Horford. You're running really third-string centers out there, and your entire front court is all third-string centers pretty much. Interested to see how they bounce back off of that. But I am interested to see Luka Garza in this Boston system because he's like a baby, not Al Horford-esque, but like he can do a lot of the same things in terms of spacing and passing the ball and putting the ball on the deck at times. But I think they're going to look to just build for next year. Use this season to kind of figure some things out. I like Anthony Simons. I'm super high on him this year, especially with his fit in Boston. Just with his ability to just be a go-to guy offensively, I think he's going to help. But I think guys are going to be in different roles this year. Jaylen Brown's now your number one option. How does that look? We've never seen it because he's always had Jason Tatum. How is Derek White flushed into more of like a number two option role? Same with Peyton Pritchard. It's not like Peyton Pritchard's able to come off the bench and he's either giving him 15 points or zero, but it didn't matter because the starting five was so good for Boston. Like now all these guys are flushed into new roles. It's going to be very, very interesting to see because I remember I'm going to compare it a little bit to the Warriors when the Warriors had that year where everybody was hurt and like you didn't have Clay and Curry was kind of hurt the entire year. It just seemed like every team that came into Golden State was trying to put belt to ass for all the shit that they had over the past years before. I think Boston's kind of the same way. I think teams are going to go into Boston wanting to put strictly belt to ass because Boston's been the dominant team out east for the past couple of seasons. Like I just think all these guys that they're talking about that have been high praise, like the Peyton Pritchards, Derek Whites of the world, like those two specifically, they're in new roles to where they have to contribute night in, night out. In the past 2 years, if you didn't get much from Peyton Pritchard, it probably didn't matter. I know Derek White's a great 3-and-D defender, but if Derek White didn't hit 5 or 6 threes this game, you guys still probably won. But now you're going to be looking and expecting him to hit that clip. So, like, I just think this team is punting and going. I think this team's going to be the biggest seller at the deadline. Like, they're going to recoup some value at the deadline to build this new core around Tatum and Brown. I don't think they're ever going to move Jaylen Brown. That's just me drafting him. I just don't see them moving him.
And you gave him the biggest contract in the sport history. So
I'm just not going to be surprised if there's like an ankle injury to Jaylen Brown where he's probably back in a week and a half, but they're like, take 3. Like, when it gets to the back end of the season, now, post All-Star break. I just think there's going to be a little bit of Brad Stevens is too smart. They're not going to go in and risk Jason Tatum playing in a meaningless season in the back end, like fuck around, get hurt again. Like, I think they punt in the back half of the year. But I think they're a little bit more competitive for end, but I think they punt in the back end.
I am not mad at anything you said. I actually think I kind of agree with a lot of it. But the only thing is, I think I might just be higher on some of the players they have. Like, I like that you mentioned Lou Garza. I like you mentioned Avery Simons. I look at Derek White as a guy that they don't want to move off of either. There's been smoke about it. I think that he is going to have a big-time season. I think he's ready to step into a role like this. I mean, we're talking about a guy, he joined that Team USA team. He's trusted as a guy who can play any role, right? And you're correct. He's not just going to get to have that fourth option look or third option look, whatever you want to say he was, but it doesn't take away from the fact that he is one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA right now. And he has shown playmaking ability. You look back to his days as a Spur, I mean, he was able to get buckets on his own really the whole time he's been in the NBA. He just has gotten to do it on a bigger stage, obviously, with them making a finals run and him playing in Boston. I also just believe in Joe Mazzulla. I think that he's one of the best coaches in the NBA, and he's going to have them at least competing hard every single night. And I'm not going to sit here and say I think they're going to be a top 6 seed. They aren't on mine, but I do not have them at 11. But I'm not mad at it because there's a world where they just wash the year. There's a world where they wash the year, so I'm not mad at that.
I just think, one, I guess 2 things. I think at the deadline, they do get calls for Derek White. And if he's having the season like you think he's going to have, it's going to be tough to turn down some of those packages. Yeah. Like, it's going to be tough to turn down some of those packages. Especially if you're in a situation to where, like, you're telling me a team offers you like 2 or 3 firsts and somebody like for Derek White, like, you gotta at least consider it. And I just think the start of the season is going to be slow. For them, you gotta think they're missing going into the season Jrue Holiday, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis going into the year. Like, I think the start of the season might be a little bit slow, so put them in the mindset of at the deadline, maybe we should punt the season away. I think they're going to be like a 500 team throughout, but I just think they're going to look at the season and be like, all right, we know what we are. There's no point. Jason Tatum's eager to come back, but we're just going to punt the season. That's kind of my mindset. That's why I had them at 11, but you can go into your 11.
Yeah, mine's the Miami Heat.
I got them at 10, so I can kind of chip in.
Yeah, we mentioned like some Nikola Jovic stuff we like. There's the hero injury. I'm a big Bam fan. Like, there's nothing I hate about the Heat, but they're just boring, and I like all these other teams above them. I think all that Heat culture stuff is a real thing. And when you had Jimmy Butler there still, and you had, that it's like that year they made that finals run, they were an 8 seed. But yeah, everything clicked, and I think Spo is that level of coach where if you really buy in and you got guys hitting shots and everyone's playing good, he can do it for you. But I don't think they have the team for that anymore. I think their magic has kind of ran out, at least with this of roster, like with this like core of Tyler Hero and Bam. I think their magic has kind of ran out. So that's really all I have to say about that. Not much other than I really just like the other teams above them. So Miami's at 11 for me.
I'm kind of the same way. I wanted to talk myself into putting them higher. Like, there's my 7 and 8 you could be interchangeable with, but I'm just looking at it as I like a lot of the individual pieces they have on their roster. It's just, will it fit? If Tyler Hero was healthy to start the year, I'd be looking at them a lot higher.
I agree with that heavily.
Because he's going to miss a good start of the year. But I think Andrew Wiggins can have a bounce back with Miami. I like Kel'el Ware. I think him with Bam Adebayo. I like that.
Kel'el Ware's been hooping in preseason.
But I think he might be a year away from being like a dominant force next to Bam, which is completely fine. It's not like Bam's about to fall off a cliff in a year or two. So you're completely fine with that. But they're kind of in the same realm as Boston, to where like, I know as Pat Riley, they never seem to like kind of fully commit to like cashing in on their assets, but they have some older assets that could be moved. Like you could flip Norman Powell in a contract year. Like you could flip him at the deadline if nothing's working out. You can flip it Andrew Wiggins. He's somebody that can just do everything at that 3 position that every team wants. So like there's a lot of avenues the season can go. The only way that they could get higher is if they get some crazy production from Jovic and Ware this year. That would be the thing. Because I love Davion Mitchell. I loved him coming out of college. I wanted Golden State to draft him when they had the 2 first-rounders. Like, I love Davion Mitchell. I think defensively, this team could be very special because Khalil Ware and Bam. Now you have Bam has a roamer and Khalil Ware protecting the rim, and you have Davion Mitchell with the on-ball. Andrew Wiggins can sit and guard. Like, they have some shit, but I just don't think they have the top-end talent to, like, push them further, if that makes sense, especially with Tyler Hero coming into the year hurt.
You definitely broke down what I was thinking a lot better than I was able to say it. Because, like, when you really lay it out and then you throw Norman Powell into everything you just said, that maybe gives you, like, maybe he's able to average 20 again. Who knows? Like, you can talk yourself in.
You have to have that year he did last year.
Yeah, like, you can talk yourself into them it all working. But let's be honest, like, we're kind of asking for a lot. Like, we're talking about a Jovic and Ware jump. We're talking about Norman Powell to average 23 again. We're talking about them to be able to win games without Hero to start the year. You know, we need Andrew Wiggins, who we already saw regress as a defender from 2 years ago to last year, to not regress anymore and kind of get back to where he was, right? Mm-hmm. Can Bam maybe improve offensively a little bit more, especially without Hero? It's just a lot of things that. So I think it's fair to have them missing the play-in because you're just asking for a lot of shit to go right.
But you can get into your 10 because you had them at 11.
Yeah, my 10 is Philly. I wanted to make sure I at least had on the record that I think they're in the play-in because I have no idea anything about Joel Embiid really right now. It sounds like he's not going to play much. Like when we did it for my awards, not to spoil anything, I didn't put Embiid on there at all because, one, I don't think he's going to play 65 games, and I don't even know if he's going to play 35 games. And then even outside of that, like a Jared McCain injury is just kind of a bummer because, like, I was excited to see what he was going to do for his sophomore year. We just got, like, such a short – I don't know how many games he played exactly last year's rookie, but when he did play, he looked like the best rookie. Obviously, Stephon Castle ended up winning Rookie of the Year, but a lot of people, I think, thought Jared McCain was going to win it for sure for a while. And you just – like, then you throw in VJ Edgecombe very next year. Like, we're talking about the Sixers went from, like, oh, my goodness, like, dark tunnel, Joel Embiid's always hurt shit to now we got kind of a young core sliding in here just in case things don't go well. So that's exciting for them. But I got them at 10 just because without Embiid, you're going to be able to win some games with Maxey and those young guys, but nothing to put you over, like, the next teams I got on here.
I'm a little bit higher on Philly, but I'll talk about that when we get to it. At 9, I don't know how you're going to feel about this. At the 9 seed, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. I try to put them higher, but I worry so much about the depth. If Giannis misses any time, chalk it. Because there's nobody – I'm not saying, like – and you can say it's about any team about their star player getting hurt, but the depth – quality isn't as great as other teams in the East. Like if you're talking about, say, like Tyler Hero's missing the start of the season, I think Miami will be, we have them at the 10 seed, but I think they'll be fine enough compared to if Giannis was missing the start because Miami has some really good other key role guys that can step up more than Milwaukee's. But I don't know. I think Milwaukee has a higher ceiling just because you have Giannis. They have a higher ceiling than Giannis because you have Giannis. Like, it's tough. I think the plan could swing out either way. These teams are probably going to be like a game or two within each other. So, like, I think they could easily be a top 6 seed depending on if Giannis is healthy. But if Giannis misses any time, I think that's when it starts to get scary. They're a team that I hope maybe it would have to be they're kind of hooping at the deadline. They're like a top 5 seed. They're a team where they need to be on the phone for like CJ McCollum to add some more scoring because I think that's what they're needing. They need a little bit more perimeter scoring, a little bit more.
I don't think you said anything wrong, but I do feel like I don't think what you're saying though says we're going to be a 9 seed because you're assuming that Giannis is going to miss some time, but like I don't think Giannis has been hurt in the playoffs a lot, but when Giannis was playing the regular season, we're talking about a guy who could have been the MVP last year. 9 seed in this East just does not seem right for that. And obviously, obviously I'm a Bucks fan. I get that. I got a little homer, a little bias, of course. But I'm also expecting. I look at it like this. Last year we ended the season without Damian Lillard. We won 8 games in a row. I think it was, a good amount out of our last 20. Our offense was better than it's been all year, even with Damian Lillard. And then we're subbing Brook Lopez, who was terrible during that time at the end of last year, for a Miles Turner. And I look at what Giannis was just doing for the Greece team, and I hate to be a Eurobasket guy right now, but, I think he's just going to be on a different journey this year. I think Giannis without Dame is a different specimen offensively. That I honestly, listen, I love Damian Lillard. I'm excited to see Point Giannis again, and I just can't see 9 seed. But I'm also just defending my Bucks, and I do agree with everything you said. We need Kevin Porter Jr. to be able to give us some sauce offensively. We need Gary Trent Jr. to shoot the shit out of the ball like he was in the playoffs. We need AJ Green
needs to give you something, yeah.
We need something from him. We need Ryan Ross. All these guys have to. You're asking for a lot. It's back to how we were talking about Miami. I'm asking for a lot. But we got that dog up top. We got that top 2 player in the world. So that's where I'm going to obviously disagree. Of course I am. But no, I'm not what you said. If Giannis is hurt, pray for me. If Giannis misses any time, I'll be done. You're telling me I got to watch the Raiders and then the Bucks without Giannis? Get the fuck out of here.
I'm going to say another point that I kind of just thought of because I've kind of said this about Doc Rivers on the pod in the past. This is a team where Doc Rivers really thrives. This is the exact team where Doc Rivers, I feel like, really it reminds me a lot. I know the Clippers never had a Giannis example. But the ragtag group that Clippers team had that was always consistently in the playoffs. I don't think Milwaukee has that same quality of depth. But I just think when you have a team that has lesser, him and Tom Thibodeau, I feel like just the floor is raised.
Are you talking about the Clippers when Montrezl Harrell was winning 6 Man of the Year and shit? That Clippers,
it was Gallinari, Tobias Harris. It's like they played Golden State in the playoffs that first year. Lou Will, Pat Bev, just a scrappy team. I think the Milwaukee Bucks kind of are growing that identity, and it's kind of something I didn't really put forth. Is I think Doc Rivers might not be the guy that can get you to the championship at this point, but I think he's a guy that can elevate your floor. And I think this is exactly the Milwaukee Bucks team that needs somebody to help elevate that floor for them.
And I like this because every year when I've had Giannis, and especially since we traded for Dame, it's the expectations are just so high. We have to win our first 4 fucking games or else it's just the expectations are so high, so high. You're letting a player the level of Giannis go into a season. This may sound crazy because I'm not saying Giannis doesn't have expectations, but you're letting a player as good as Giannis go into a season where people are just looking at his team they're worthless. Don't expect anything from them. I just feel like that, at least for me, makes me feel good as a fan. That sounds like a recipe for a little bit of a fuck you tour from us. And that's what I think I can get behind. Not to get stuck on the Bucks here because we'll talk about them probably briefly again when they get to my own list. My number 9 is the Indiana Pacers. I think that also can. Yeah, I hated doing it because we're talking about a team that was just in the game 7 of the finals against OKC, who we're gonna probably fucking glaze when we get to them. But dude, I mean, you don't have your offensive engine, Tyrese Halliburton. He's your guy, and you lose Miles Turner, who is your center. Having a good center is just so valuable. I think it leaves a lot of this year can be good for them. I mean, we've talked about it before already, but like obviously we both think Pascal Siakam is one of the most underrated players in basketball. We think guys like Benedict Mathurin, Aaron Naismith, and Andrew Nembhard can step into roles and show something. Maybe we're excited for a Johnny Furphy or Jarris Walker to get a little bit more of a moment, right? Like it'll be fine to like for going forward to kind of learn things about some of your guys, but let's just be honest. You lose Hallie due to injury, and now Miles Turner's off this team. It's going to be a drop-off. You're probably not going to be a team who's winning a playoff series this year, at least in my mind. 9, Indiana Pacers.
I agree with everything you said. I don't really even have anything to add because I had them at my 8, so you can go into your 8.
Yeah, my 8's Boston. So I'll be honest, dude, you kind of talked me out of them, and it sounds like there's a common theme here of a team that we're high on that we haven't talked about yet at this 7th spot. Unless it's Philly for you, but you haven't talked about the team I'm thinking. But I'll go quick about Boston, and then I'll get to my 7. My 8's Boston. I ain't glad you kind of sold me on things you were saying. To where I had Boston at 7 originally. But I kind of agree just because I had to move to 8. I still think they're going to be good. And what I was saying back to you earlier, I think still applies. But there is just that like thought in my head, like one injury and they're probably just packing bags for the year and being like, let's get on to next year and get Tatum healthy. And I really do think like Tatum is the level of player that without him, his absence is going to be very noticed, especially talking about over a whole season. But I think that like that culture there they got going on in Boston, and you know a coach like Joe Mazzulla is going to have this team playing games. 8 seeds where I got 17. I got the Toronto Raptors. Have you said your 8? You might have said your 8 actually.
I had Indiana as my 8. So
okay, we did. I had the Toronto Raptors at 7. Is that who you have at 7?
No, I do not.
I like this even more. I like it even more though. I like it even more. That means you okay. This is nuts. I did not think you were going to have them in your playoff. So you're telling me right now the Toronto Raptors will not play in the play-in this year, but they will play in the playoff. I like that shit right there. I like that shit right there. All right. You go ahead. No, I want you to have the floor for Toronto right now.
So you're 7 seeds, Toronto. I'll talk more about Toronto. I'll get into Detroit.
Okay. You got Detroit 7. Okay. I'm high on Detroit. But go ahead.
I'm looking at them as a team that I just think they're gonna be here. Like I just don't. Cade Cunningham was phenomenal last year. I know Jaden Ivey's gonna come back and add another element to the offense. Asar could take a jump. Ron Howard could take a jump. But I still my main gripe with them was like, God, there were just so many guys you could have went out and got to just add another layer to this offense. And I feel like they just didn't really capitalize on some of the stuff they could have done. When you have tradable contracts like a Tobias Harris, where you could have packaged him and a draft pick to go get somebody, especially where like what I saw, like, for example, against Toronto, I'm high on Brandon Ingram. If Brandon Ingram would have went to Detroit instead of Toronto, I would be talking about Detroit in a completely different light because you have another guy next to Cade Cunningham. I got to see what Ivey's fit looks like with Bickerstaff and because he didn't play all last year really. So you got to see what his fit is next to Cade. And I'm high on Ivey. I think he can come back and be really good. But I feel like the lineups that are going to work best is when you have Cade at the 1, Asar at the 2, Ron Holland at the 3 defensively. For those two wings to be out there on the floor at the same. I don't know. But it's the shooting and the spacing.
I think Ivey's I like where you're at with that. I think Ivey's to a point he's almost correct. We didn't see him much last year. You don't think Ivey's established enough as an NBA player to where we're not really caring about Ron Holland defensively and we're just like we have to play Ivey over him? You don't think?
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at.
You think Ron needs to be on court? You think Ivey's that much of a liability defensively?
It's not much of it's a liability.
You got to think about Cade's size and what Asar brings as an on-ball defender. Like out of the smallest or worst guy of that 1, 2, and 3, Ivey can be there, and Ivey's still a 6'5" guard. I'm gonna get crazy about Jaden Ivey probably, so I'm just gonna let you keep going because I'm just gonna say it. He's my most improved player this year. So I'm high on the Pistons. That's why I'm disagreeing right now. That's my most improved player. I think Cade. Here's what I think. Here's what I'm gonna debate you. Here's how I want to debate you. This is the only thing I'm not liking about this. When I think of all the guys in the Eastern Conference that become that number one option, like I'm thinking of like anyone, like the Paolo, the Trae Young, and Paolo's past this point maybe too. Anybody who's done it. Zach LaVine when he was on the Bulls, and Rose when he was on the Bulls, like LaMelo Ball. He was a playing guy at one point. I think Cade Cunningham is just past. He is that level of player that is just gonna.
I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying.
He's like another tier above a lot of these other number one options. Like he's entering top 10 player in the world things for me, conversations for me. But I'll let you keep going. I didn't mean to
I'm not really worried anything about Cade Cunningham. It's more so the others. Does Ausar take that jump? Like we know he has the potential to do it. Does Ron Holland progress into something better? Ivy off the injury with Bickerstaff as a head coach because it didn't work with Monty Williams when Ivy was on the team. So it's another head coach with Jay and Ivy. So like we'll see what happens. And then it's like a lot of their season success was not based on, I'm not going to say percentages and based on a whole lot of what somebody did, but Malik Beasley had a big time year. And with him now on the team, I know you bring in Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson, but Malik Beasley was top 3 in 3-pointers made throughout the year. Like he was in for a payday from Detroit, and he fit exactly what they wanted to do. So now you're just subtracting him completely, and we haven't seen Duncan Robinson play at that level in years since Miami was going to the finals. And like Karis LeVert can be super hit or miss. I like him off the bench though for a scoring and a playmaking option, but just like in terms of the two teams at 6 and 7 that I have above them, I think Detroit's making the playoffs, spoiler for me. So like they're going to be fine, but I just have them at 7. I just think they could just lose a couple games and get them out and to get to the 7th seed. That's just kind of my mindset on it.
I'll agree with this. If like we've kind of mentioned this, like they are a team to me. I think they have a really good team. I've made that clear, but I don't love like how long their lineup is. So like a couple guys missing some time could really like hinder what they're trying to do. Because they're a team in the playoffs this year that I think they got to play 7-8 guys for real. I think also losing Dennis Schroeder could hurt a little bit. Karis LeVert can definitely take some of that. Like I like that you brought him up because he can take a little bit of that secondary playmaker away from Cade, and especially now having Ivy back there, just helping the playmaking stuff. But for the most part, Cade's gonna be doing that anyway. So I think Karis LeVert will cover up from a Dennis Schroeder loss. You gotta hope Duncan can be a very good shooter, but it's gonna be hard to replicate what Malik Beasley did. I mean, didn't he? He set like a fucking franchise record. So I'm with you there. They could lose some games.
And then at 7,
in a play-in game, he's winning that.
Yeah. So at 7, you have Toronto.
I have Toronto. I like that you like we've talked about them a lot already. So I'll save it for when you want to get to them.
Yeah.
But yes, my 7's Toronto.
I can get into my 6.
Okay. Philly?
I have Philly at 6.
Jeez, man.
I got Philly at 6. I am
Toronto. Top 5. Top 4.
Top 5.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them next. We'll get into Philly real quick. The only thing I have to say is whenever Joel Embiid's on the court, they win in the regular season. Whenever he's just on the court, they win. And like, I know Jared McCain is coming into the season hurt. I'm not worried about it whatsoever because this is why you brought back Quentin Grimes and you have Tyrese Maxey. And guess what? This opens the door for your top draft pick in BJ Edgecombe, who I think is a great fit that can play that swing position. Like, I think Paul George, I'm not saying Paul George is going to turn the clock back, but I think Paul George is going to be a serviceable option for you when everybody's healthy, when he doesn't have to do everything, when Maxey was out of the lineup and everything else like that, when Paul George is just by himself. So it's like, and I think it might be a hot take. I love Adem Bona being the backup for Joel Embiid. I think his energy off the bench is really going to help them. But it's just like, I think they have a little bit more depth this year to sustain some level of a Joel Embiid, not even injury, just him not playing back-to-backs and whatnot. But I think even if he doesn't play back-to-backs, I think he's going to be a little bit more healthier this year. Same with Paul George. If this team had injuries all over the place, like Maxey missed time, Paul George missed time, like Joel Embiid obviously missed time. But I think if they can just get a half-season health of Joel Embiid, they win games. They're going to win games. I think they're going to, if they're in a play-in team, I'm also not shocked because I think when you have Joel Embiid in a play-in game scenario, they're going to probably win that game. So it's like, if he just plays half the year, I think they're still going to be good enough to be a 6 seed. Like, when he's on the court, they just win games. Like, he's just that kind of player. If you have him on the court, the gravity he creates, they're just winning games. And from everything I know right now, he's going to start the season. It seems like everybody besides Jared McCain and Paul George, I know he's dealing with a little minor thing, but from what I'm hearing and seeing, it's like the Sixers are going to be fully ready to go to start the year.
You're definitely making me feel like I underrated them, having them at 10. I just don't believe in them getting, having the health. And if they do, though, man, like everything you're saying is true. Joel Embiid is a top player in the world when he's healthy and playing. So yeah, I'm not mad at that at all. Dude, like I'm not gonna sit here and like do the Chicago Bulls thing and say basketball's better when Philly's good. I don't fucking believe that at all. But I do think that it sucks when players like Joel Embiid aren't playing in the playoffs at the end of the year. Like that top level of players we want to see in the playoffs. So that would be nice to see them back.
Yeah. And then you can get into your 6.
Yeah, my 6 is the Atlanta Hawks. We love their team. We've talked about them a lot. They're like the sexy off-season team, the team everyone's excited to watch. They made all these great free agency moves. They make a good trade for Kristaps Porzingis. I have to have some pause about how healthy Kristaps going to be all year as well. I mean, I don't want this episode to turn into that and just like health optimism or whatever, but because if he plays, we know he's good. And I love a Kristaps Porzingis where he's not just like, being this like addition to Boston, being really good. Like when he was hurt, in that playoff run, like that kind of like sucks because he's good enough. We've seen in Dallas and in Washington, like he's good enough to be that reliable one of your best guys. And so it's going to be fun to see that with Trae Young. Like giving a guy like Trae Young, like just that much size as one of his, like thinking about him and Jalen Johnson just being like, the front court on that team just really helps a guy, like a smaller guy like Trae Young, who also happens to be a really good playmaker. So, like, I think Atlanta's a really good team. I think they're going to be really good, but I got to see it still. I got to see it because for a lot of Trae Young's career, like, obviously he has that one ECF appearance. But outside of that, like, you're going to see a top 5 offense, but those defenses have been really bad, and I want to trust the Detroit team, and I want to trust the Giannis-led team over them right now. But I could very well be wrong about that, and that would make sense to me. But right now, I still am gonna trust the Detroit, who just played as good as they did for all of last year and have a really competitive playoff series against the Knicks. Like I think they're a legit team. Cade Cunningham is he's the best player between the two teams. And then I'm gonna trust the Giannis team. So that's why I have those two teams above Atlanta, who's my 6. I'm obviously extremely excited for this team.
Yeah, I can kind of tap in more to Atlanta, but we can pivot to my 5. I have Toronto at the 5.
Here we go.
I think every season,
man.
Every season, either at the Eastern or Western Conference, there's always a team that like surges into the playoffs. And it kind of was Detroit last year where they like surged into the playoffs and kind of shocked the world. I just think Toronto can be that team. I really do. I'm high on Scotty Barnes. He's kind of been dealing with some like knick-knack injuries, I feel like, the past 2 seasons. And this team was all hurt last year. Like Emmanuel quickly hurt. RJ Barrett missed some time. You didn't have Brandon Ingram. You've yet to see him. We see him in preseason now. But like them having like that top 7 guys of depth that they can go to, top 8, I think they have a strong top 7 or 8. I like quickly off your bench because I like Point Scotty. I think that's where you need to go.
Are they going to do that, though?
Who knows? Who knows? But
Yeah,
even
Tatum so much money to be a sixth man.
yeah, for sure. But I just think
Keep going though.
he's such
Sorry.
a good microwave scorer for them
Oh yeah.
with the spacing ability that he has and his ability to get downhill and get 2 feet in the paint. I think it's just going to work. I think Brandon Ingram was like the perfect addition. I know people talk about the worries with the spacing, but I just love Brandon Ingram to operate in the mid-range to where he's a phone booth guy. You don't need a lot of space. He can get to his spots and he's going to be fine. I think RJ Barrett's still very slept on. I know RJ Barrett can kind of be really up and down, but like RJ Barrett is a strong 17 to 18 points a night that doesn't really get talked about. I know they want to talk about the efficiency and the numbers and the 3-point shot being inconsistent, but like he's a scorer that can do a little bit of everything. Like they have a bunch of guys that are super versatile on this team. I think defensively they're going to be really, really good with Scotty Barnes leading the way. Like I think they have enough. Like in the spacing that Grady Dick and Emmanuel quickly can provide them, I think is going to be enough. And I just think this team, they're a healthy season away from being that team that just all of a sudden surges into the playoffs. Like that's how I feel about them. If they can just get healthy, I think they're that team in the Eastern Conference specifically that can just surge in and kind of pass up some teams like due to some injuries and everything else like that. I know we've been talking about injuries a ton, but that's the game. The game is the healthiest teams kind of are able to overlap. And with Boston and Indiana being hurt, those two teams being hurt are a big reason why I think Toronto can make that surge and get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I love it. I got them at the 7. This can be a Raptors pod, man. I'm here for it. I've said that it's on the reels. I'm going to be watching the Raptors this year. It's as simple as that. Here's a quick thing I'll say about them, and then we can move on because you hit it on the head. But what this team needs to happen is you need your Jacoby Walters or Grady Dick or Ochai to be having a good enough year to where you're in the mix. And I love the shout you gave RJ Barrett, but they need to be sitting around this, 4 to 7 to 8 seed at the trade deadline. And you better hope you're there. RJ Barrett's averaging 17 and 20. You trade him because the way this team reaches their ceiling is getting just enough value out of RJ Barrett to address, maybe get another big, maybe get another lead guard, a playmaker. Then you can really just say, okay, you know what? We'll swallow our pride. Quickly's our 6th man. And RJ Barrett, you were great here. But these wing minutes, if we reach our max potential, are Ochai Abaji's minutes. They're Grady Dick's minutes. It's finding a way for Colin Murray-Boyles to get on the court. Jacoby Walter is playing good enough to where we don't have to have a guy like RJ Barrett out there taking away from what we need to do. It sounds disrespectful, but it's just the truth. RJ Barrett's a good player, but if this team wants to get to where they need to get to, we don't need him taking 18 shots a game. Let's give those wing minutes to our floor spaces.
So I think it's going to be very interesting because I think they're going to be a buyer at the deadline. But yeah, we can get into so
I think they're buying with RJ is what I meant to say. Yeah. Not sell RJ and try to rebuild it. I say maybe
they're upgrading from RJ to something else.
100%.
And then you can go into your 5.
Yeah, my 5 is the Detroit Pistons. I already talked about them, so
we can get into the top 4.
Pretty much said all I need to say. But Cade Cunningham, man, I believe in it. I don't think they're a one-hit wonder. I think he is that level of player. He's entering conversations that y'all aren't even, not you, but that he's entering conversations right now that the NBA fans it's going to sneak up on a lot of people once we start saying the names where he needs to be around. That's all I got for them.
So now getting into our top 4, I have Atlanta at 4. Looking at Atlanta, I just think they have it all. I legit think they have it all. They are a team that can compete with legit any team in the NBA. They have the size. Like when you're talking about just the pure, even in lineups, I know at times they have struggled without Trae Young on the court, and any team without Trae Young being your best guy is going to struggle because he's that good offensively and he can put guys in spots. But if you get into a situation where teams are matching up to go at Trae Young, that's fine. Because you can have a lineup of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dyson Daniels, Risha Shea, Jalen Johnson, and Kristaps Porzingis, and have this crazy size and all this length on the court that can switch everything, that can space the floor. Jalen Johnson can run and be your point forward because he's good enough to do that and run the offense through him at times. I'm not saying you're a better team without Trae Young, because you're not. But I think in certain lineups and situations, you can match up with anybody because you have that size and that length and that versatility. They can have a lineup where they're switching everything on the floor with Onyeka Okongwu out there instead of Kristaps Porzingis. They can go switch all, and not a lot of teams can do that. And then you add Trae Young's element on the perimeter and being able to be a hub offensively. Like, I just think this team really does have it all. And I am so excited to see, like, what they have, because defensively, you're talking about a guard tandem. Like, for the Jalen Brunsons, the Cade Cunninghams in the Eastern Conference, like,
keep going. Keep going. One second.
The Donovan Mitchells in the world. Dyson Daniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker has your lead defenders, point of attack defenders, is so interesting in those certain matchups. And I'm super high on Risha Shea and what he can do, but I just feel like the pressure also isn't fully there on him to just come out and be this, like, go-to guy in year two. He can just find his footing because you have Jalen Johnson and all these guys. So he can just find his footing. And I'm not going to be surprised if he averages like a sneaky, like, 16-7 on this team, just like finding and getting to his spots. I just think they have it all. I don't have him as a top 3 seed, but I think when looking at it, I think they match up good with the Knicks with all that length and size. I think they match up good with the Cavs for sure. Trae Young is always giving Cleveland hell, but they're just a run-gun team. I would kill, because I know we're high on both teams, I would kill to see Orlando and Atlanta match up at some point in the playoffs in the second round or something.
You said Orlando and Atlanta?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be a fun one too. We'd be talking about one of the best offenses most likely versus one of the best defenses. And I think that just the thing I'll say about Atlanta, where I agree. If Jalen Johnson's got another leap in him, that's when shit gets really scary for this team. And that's gonna be fun. You can go.
No, so that was my 4 seed. So you can go ahead and get into your 4.
One sec, sorry, my dog was barking. My 4 is the Milwaukee Bucks. If that's too loud, here, you know what? You can go ahead with is Atlanta your 4?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what I'll say about the Bucks real quick. I already spoke on it earlier of everything I needed to say. This may seem very high for what my standard is, or for what everyone else's standard is for the Bucks. Sorry, that's what I was trying to say. But I believe in Giannis. I think Giannis is the best player of any of the teams we've already mentioned, and I think he is going to show that all season long. And as long as he can stay healthy, I'm very confident in us. The Bucks are at 4. I already said all the things I need to say about them. I expect Kuzma to actually play a lot better this year than he has been. He's been kind of a laughing stock recently. I think he kind of has a little bit of a get-back year, and that would be really good for us.
Yeah, we already dove into the Bucks when I had them on the play-in. But looking at my 3 seed, I have the Orlando Magic. I think everybody's high on Orlando and Atlanta, rightfully so. I think Desmond Bane is just the perfect fit. I think he's just a perfect fit to pair, and I think Paolo still has another leap in him. And, like, defensively, they're just stout. Like, they're just so good defensively to where, like, they're a tough matchup for every single team. They played it close the past 2 years in the playoffs, even with kind of everybody being hurt all of last year. So I think Desmond Bane, just with his ability to run the 1 and the 2 paired up with Suggs, I think it's going to be super interesting. But I have him at 3 just because of Paolo Banchero. I think he's going to be a dark horse MVP guy. A little bit of a spoiler for the award side of things, but I think he's going to definitely be a dark horse MVP candidate. Just because I feel like he finally has the spacing he needs with the addition of Desmond Bane to, like, really unlock his ability to get downhill and be that playmaker at his size. But right now, with what he's able to do, he's a mismatch because he has the handle and the size to bang down low, but he's quick enough on the perimeter to get by guys. So it's, like, super interesting. I have him a notch above Atlanta just because I think Atlanta's going to be a stellar second half of the season team. I think they might start out a little bit slow. They got a lot of different moving parts to start the year. But I think Orlando has a lot of the same core that they had. And I think a big, big missing part is Mo Wagner. last year because I think he's the most skilled center they have in that room with his ability to play make and space the floor. I think he was a big thing that they were missing last year because he's tore the ACL, but he's coming into the year healthy, ready to go. So I think Orlando, with what they already have in their core, and then they're just adding Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones, which is another really good pickup. Like, I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to start out the year really strong, but I just can't in the regular season take them above Cleveland or New York right now. That's why I got them at 3.
I like that we're on the same page about the Magic. Like, I think there's just something about having such a high floor defensively that just makes me feel comfortable with having them above some of these other teams. Like, really, to me, like, they could still have the spacing issues that they've had in the past, and they could still be a top 3 seed. Like, I had them at my number 3. And I just think that Paulo Banchero is bound to take even another leap to kind of being that guy that we see in the playoffs. Last year, if he stayed healthy, it was going to be last year. Franz Wagner, I really like how Jace Richardson's looked in preseason. I think they're a team to be really excited about. And it's not like they made all these new additions that Atlanta did, and you're going to have to rely on guys that like mesh well. They kind of already had this foundation built, and then you just throw Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones into that. And a Jace Richardson who can shoot. So I think they're kind of a safer pick. That's why I had them at 3.
And then I'm pretty sure we have the same 1 and 2 because at 2 I have Cleveland.
Yeah. I have Cleveland at 1, but same 1 and 2 teams.
Flop.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Then I guess you should talk about New York, and I can talk about Cleveland because that's my 1.
Mm-hmm.
If that's how you want to do it.
Yeah, we can do that. So New York, I'm just a big Mike Brown guy. That's kind of what it comes down to. I'm just a huge Mike Brown guy, and I'm not gonna have him in my top 3 because when my awards, I always do like my favorite and then like 2 guys I think could kind of be in the mix because it's always like a top 3 for the awards in the NBA. I just love what Mike Brown is going to be able to do with this team offensively. I think he's going to put Mikal Bridges in a way better spot to do more offensively. I think we'll see more of Mikal Bridges than what he was in Brooklyn offensively. Kind of just giving him the ball in space in that mid-range and able to work is something that they just never went to. It was either Jalen Brunson with a ball screen, and that was their offense, and that's kind of a big reason why they were so limited. But a big opening thing is Karl-Anthony Towns. I think Karl-Anthony Towns gets a lot of flack at times for like his lack of ability to guard. Outside of Jokic, and I could even say, it might be a little bit of a hot take, there might not be a more skilled center at every facet of the game offensively than Karl-Anthony Towns in the league. With his shooting ability and everything that he provides you offensively, on the block, in the mid-range, spacing the floor, I think they did him a disservice, and he had one of the best years of his career offensively, putting him in spots. I think Mike Brown is going to better utilize his ability to space the floor. And I think he's going to get back to shooting high clip numbers for me. I'm thinking like somewhere between like 8 attempts a night because he's a good enough shooter to do that. And it's just going to open up the floor a lot more. And then you add Jordan Clarkson, Yabusele on your bench. So you have more concrete depth coming off your bench now. So it's like me looking at this team, it's like Mike Brown, the coaching change is going to be what gets this team over and gets to that 1 seed, which is where I have them over Cleveland. Just because I think Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, like, I think it's like Sabonis and Fox, that 2-man game they had in Sacramento, on steroids because Karl-Anthony Towns can shoot and space the floor.
Yeah, the new coach, and then adding depth because last year, like, they didn't have depth, and Tibbs wasn't going to use it anyways because we kind of know how he plays his guys. Could really unlock this team by getting to another level in the regular season. And we spoke on it, like Karl-Anthony Towns, we're both kind of on the same page of how great he is. And then you kind of get a coach that's going to unlock him. I definitely could see a world. I mean, I think the difference between the Cavs and the Knicks is it's going to be a couple games. I just wanted to give the edge to the Cavs because I loved how dominant they were in the regular season last year. And I just think when your front court is that, as reliable of a center as Jarrett Allen is, just doing all the little things. And then a defensive player of the year in Evan Mobley at the 4. Like, that is just such a recipe for just being able to just dominate a regular season. And they did it last year. They were the 1 seed and dominated last year with Donovan Mitchell. Really, I'm not going to say taking a back seat because, like, 24-25 a game is no backseat. That's not easy to do at all. But we're kind of more used to him. We're used to him kind of having more volume, and he was really just getting everyone involved. And I think they're going to do that again. And I honestly expect Lonzo Ball to come in and give them a little bit of something. I think it's about time that injury is done for him. I'm really hoping to see that. That's why I had the Cavs at 1. I agree with everything you said on the Knicks. It's going to just be a couple games difference. These two teams are really, really good. Like, it really makes me think, like, when we're talking about these other teams that are kind of on the rise in the East and how good, like, we think they are and how good we think they can be, you look at, like, the Knicks and the Cavs, like, they still really are on another level. And I'm glad the Knicks were able to get to an ECF. It's crazy to me that after the last year's regular season that the Cavs didn't get past the Pacers. I know there was a ton of injuries, but it just does tell you that anything can happen in the playoffs and stuff. But the Cavs, man, they're stacked. The Knicks just stacked. Like they're in a tier alone in the East for sure. I do want to conclude by saying that.
But we can kind of transition and get into the Eastern Conference playoffs real quick. It's kind of tough to predict the playoffs, obviously, when the season hasn't even started. But I have just first round, second round, and games won. So I can start out with my 1-8. I guess the play-in matchup, I have the Milwaukee Bucks getting in and getting the 8th seed. With that being said, because it's always tough, I think the play-in is going to be legit half games before, so it's kind of like my predictions can kind of go either way, but my play-in teams are the teams I think are going to be in the play-in seeding or whatever aside. I have New York and Milwaukee in round 1. I got New York winning this one in 6. I'm going to give Giannis 2 games. I think they get one in the Garden. I can see them stealing a game 1 in the Garden with Giannis. And this is also, I just think Milwaukee has a pivot move. I think there's a pivot move out there for Milwaukee to kind of elevate themselves and to be a real threat. I just think New York is a tough draw. This is where I have them here, is kind of in that playing realm. Is like, if Giannis, this is like Giannis misses like a 4-game stretch. That's a tough, like that's like a 1-3 game like stretch right there. It was just like small stretches where he could miss throughout the year, where it's just like, damn, that's kind of a tough stretch that they went through is why they're here. But I think if they get shit rolling, right, like they kind of did going to the playoffs at the end of the year, last year, I think they can be fine. But I have New York going and winning in 6 in my 1-8 matchup.
Yeah, I got Cleveland sweeping Boston in my 1-8. I think that, you know, Boston, I gave them a lot of praise, but when I think of them in a playoff series against Cleveland, I hate the matchup front court wise. We got to see what Boston's going to have in their front court already. And when I don't even think that's going to be a series that we'll see now that I say it out loud. But if it is, I think it'd be a sweep if I'm being completely honest. I got Cleveland advancing at my 1-8.
4-5, I have Atlanta at my 4, Toronto at my 5. I have Atlanta winning this one in 5 games. I think Toronto breaks through, gets to the playoffs for it feels like the first time in a minute with this core. Even if I'm glad you brought up the pivot RJ Barrett and kind of buying and getting somebody else in that room. That may be a better fit than RJ Barrett, but I think Toronto gets to the 5 seed. I think Atlanta wins in 5 or 6 games. I think Atlanta's just a tough matchup for them, especially with what they can throw out there defensively and the size and length they can match up with Toronto athletically. And I just think Atlanta, this is just a tough draw for Toronto. I think if Toronto played Orlando, it would be a way different series just because of the styles and the matchup. But I think Atlanta just has a little bit too much offense in a series with Toronto. So I got Atlanta winning in 6.
Yeah, I like that. I think, and if that does happen, like we could be so right about Toronto having this great season. And if they are a first round exit, like we're just gonna be like they're a year away anyways. Like this is their first year with Brandon Ingram. You know, like they got moves to make, so it'd be a fine season. My 4-5 is the Bucks in Detroit. I got Bucks in 7, man. Like I think our absolute ceiling is this of us winning a playoff series, and I don't think Detroit's gonna be an easy series at all, especially having to find ways to guard Cade Cunningham. But I just think Giannis in a series like that, I think it would be tough for me to pick against him. Like it almost feels like it's hard. It's weird even talking about this because Giannis is always hurt in the playoffs. But if we are to get into a playoff scenario against any team outside of, Orlando, New York, or Cleveland, I think Giannis takes care of it. So yeah, that's what I got, man. I'm a little bit more. Maybe I'm just getting excited for basketball, but I'm feeling good about Giannis and the Bucks right now. I got them over Detroit.
I would say that's the best matchup. If you guys did match up with somebody in the first round, I think that would be the matchup that you would have the best shot of winning that series for sure.
Yeah, maybe I crafted that up a little bit.
At my 2-7, I have Cavs and Pistons. I have Cavs winning in 5. I think this would just be a tough draw for the Pistons to get Cleveland.
Yeah.
This is kind of goes
into for Jalen Duren to handle.
Yeah, for the front court, like you kind of said when you brought up Boston, I think the front court would just dominate and overwhelm Detroit. And this is a way different team than they had when they played the Knicks last year in the first round. And I think it would be tough to kind of deal with Donovan Mitchell in a series, but that's why you have Ron Holland and Ausar Thompson. It would be big time series for them in year 2 for Ausar to take on that matchup. But I just think it's a little bit too much, especially if Evan Mobley's taking the leap that everybody thinks he can take. I think it's just going to be a tough draw, and I got the Cavs winning in 5 in my 2-7.
Yeah, I like that. They just got to be healthy, man. Like I feel like I said the same shit before they play the Pacers this year. They got to be healthy in the playoffs because that team's great. Sorry, did you just do your
2-7?
Did you just do your 2-7? Okay, yeah. I have Toronto and New York. I think this would be a kind of a fun series, but I'm gonna go. I got New York in 5. Like I already mentioned, I don't gotta say it again. They're a year away if they get to this game. The Knicks are coming off an ECF. You know, it's gonna take a lot to bounce this team. And Toronto's just not gonna be able to do it.
Going into my 3-6, I agree with everything you just said with the Knicks and Toronto. 3-6, I have Orlando and Philly. I'm going to Orlando in 7. This will be a gross series. I'm going to Orlando and Philly. And I'm going to Orlando in 7. I think it would be a gross series.
Yeah.
But it just comes down to, it's tough because it's like Joel Embiid, if he's healthy, I think if Joel Embiid's fully healthy going into the playoffs, it'd be a 3-6 and Philly be favored. Just because Joel Embiid and he would be hooping.
It would be.
I'm gonna give the edge to Orlando. I'm gonna go somewhere in between 6-7 games, but I'm gonna go Orlando getting to the second round this year.
Hey, playoff Paulo's a real thing.
Yeah,
that's all we've seen so far. So we gotta let's not get too crazy about Embiid when playoff Paulo's over there. Like, hey, hold on now. I'm 6'10", 250, and I'm a fucking guard.
Yeah. Like, there's nobody on Philly that can really match it with Paolo, but I'm going to give a little bit more respect to Embiid. Just because when he's healthy, he's just a matchup nightmare, and he elevates everybody around him. So I'm just going to give him the little nod.
If this was round 2, we wouldn't have to give him that respect. But it's round 1, so we can give him a little respect.
And then you can get to your 3-6.
My 3-6 is just a gorgeous series of Atlanta. Atlanta at the 6, Orlando at the 3. This would be a fun one, dude. This would be really fun. Like I said earlier when we were talking about it, it's going to be the defense versus the offense to me. I don't know what we're going to get from Atlanta's defense. But as much as I said about Orlando, how I feel like they have that safe floor where I feel like they're the 3 seed, I got to go Atlanta. Atlanta in 7. I think if Atlanta taps in to their potential, they enter a different level as a playoff team to me. When I just think about Nickeil, Risase, and Luke Kennard as your shooters around Trae Young, and Kristaps in the pick and roll game with Trae Young, and maybe Asa Newell is a good rookie coming off the bench making Obi Toppin type plays like the Pacers had going last year. Like, there's a world where this team kind of turns into that like Pacers style team in the playoffs that feels unbeatable, and you just like can't figure out why. Like you got the big man shooting threes. You got your Trae Young, Halliburton getting everyone involved. You got your shooters knocking down shots. You got Jalen Johnson maybe tapping into that like Pascal Siakam level basketball. So that's where I see them just being able to have the edge as a 60. So I got Atlanta.
Getting into the second round, I agree because I'm gonna go ahead and talk a little bit more Atlanta. 1-4, I have New York and Atlanta in my second round. I have the Knicks in 7.
Young back in the Garden.
I have the Knicks in 7. I think the Knicks are hardened, man. Like, I think the 2 comeback wins they had against Boston last year, like, flipped a switch into this team mentally to where, like, they're never going to be down and out in a series. Um, but I just think
Jalen
that,
Brunson,
and then Jalen Brunson when it matters most is just that
bro.
guy. So I'm just leaning the Knicks. This would be a super successful year for Atlanta going into year 1 of this kind of new core around Trae Young. But I think the Knicks, this is where you would see them start to kind of run out of gas in the Tibbs era. But I think this would be a new rejuvenated. You'd see them with a little bit more burst. And I think coming out of a series against an Orlando team, which is going to be in your situation, like you had Hawks in Atlanta, like I think it's going to be a dogfight in that first round for a lot of first round matchups. But I think with the Knicks getting Milwaukee, I think they get out of that series a little bit easier than like Atlanta versus Orlando. But that's just me. But I have the Knicks going to the conference finals for back-to-back years. And I do have the Hawks pushing them 7.
Let me just say, a Game 7, Trae Young in the Garden, Dyson Daniels checking Jalen Brunson. My eyes would be just glued to that television. That is just cinema right there. Like, that is just, you can't make that up. That's awesome. That's awesome. Mine is, did you do your 1-4-5? You did your 1-4? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I got Cleveland beating Milwaukee. And I'll be honest, man, if Cleveland's healthy, this is maybe 5 games. They could just, they have the lineup to slow Giannis. And we would have to shoot the fucking shit out of the ball to be in this series because I don't see a way that we stop them. I don't see us being able to stop them. Cleveland was one of the best offenses in the NBA last year. That's not going to change if they're healthy in the playoffs, and I think they will be. They had some very freak injuries. Darius Garland's a concerning one, but I don't think we're going to see like Mobley, or excuse me, it was Allen who was hurt. And Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs is one of the best players. Like, you saw it last year. I wish he didn't have to have those games where he's taking 30 shots, but if he has to do that, he can do that. And that kind of gives them a luxury to, like, even if, like, we're able to, you know, like, slow down what they were doing all regular season offensively, they still got a guy who can just go, like, put the team on his back. So, yeah, I got Cavs in 5 over my Bucks. I was kind of glazing my Bucks all episode here, but they run into a beast here with Cleveland, and I got Cleveland advancing to the ECF.
And then on the opposite side of my bracket, I have Cavs and Magic 2-3 matchup. I'm gonna go Cleveland in 7. I think Orlando's a tough, good matchup, but I just think eventually, if this team is healthy, they're gonna break through and get to the conference finals. That's kind of all I have to say. I think they would take care of Orlando in a 6-7 game series. It'd be tough, but I think eventually this team is due to break through and get through, and get to the conference finals. They're kind of a lot like Milwaukee before they broke through and got to the conference finals, where like they were a really good regular season team and they piled up a bunch of wins, but they can never break through in the playoffs. I think this is the year the Cavs get to the conference finals.
I hate to be a Debbie Downer here, but my 2-6 is the same as what your 1-4 was. I know I hyped up what a Game 7 would be like. I don't think Atlanta would actually be able to push them that far, though. I'm a believer in this Knicks team, and I don't think that goes 7. If I had to say between 5 and 6, I'll go ahead and be safe and say 6 if I'm being boring here. A Game 7 would be incredible. I think the Knicks would find a way to close it out in Atlanta, though, in a Game 6, and the stage would be set with the Cleveland-New York ECF, and I'll just go ahead and say I got Cleveland at 7. I'm not going to be boring in that one. I got Cleveland beating the Knicks this year. I got Cleveland going to the finals, but that's going to be a dogfight, man. That's going to be an absolute dogfight. The reason I give Cleveland the edge is just those moments are stuck in my head where Brunson and Cat were unplayable together defensively when shit got really serious. I'm not going to over harp on it or doubt them because of it, because I think they have, you know, some things in place now this year that could kind of help that. And they got the film on what they need to do. And, you know, they're going into this season kind of like a Luka Doncic is, knowing that's the flaw. They can really focus in on it. But no, I think Cleveland, I gotta give Cleveland the edge there, and Cleveland's heading to the finals out of the East for me.
before we pivot, and we're going to break this episode up into 2 parts, obviously, but I'm going to have New York going over Cleveland, and I have New York going to the finals. I think this would be a series where New York would win this series based on how good, like, Mitchell Robinson plays. Because when these teams met in the playoffs a couple years ago, Mitchell Robinson was killing Jared Allen down low. And it would be a situation to where
Good point.
you have like Yabusele in that room, Josh Hart undersized, I know, but he's a monster on the glass. Like, it would be a big front court versus big front court in the conference finals, go to the finals. And I'm going to give the slight edge to the Knicks in this one. Since you went the Cavs, I was going to go with the Knicks.
I'm not mad at you picking it. I'm not disagreeing. Like, the Knicks could very well beat the Cavs. But I do want to mention that playoff series we saw in the first round a couple of years ago. It's a different beast than Evan Mobley now. But there's also Cat there now, too, for the Knicks. So the teams have changed a little bit. But I do think that's kind of an interesting I kind of had forgotten that they played a first-round series, and the Knicks really took care of them when they did.